I'm going to show you how to create a large wave. I'm using a fan brush, number 3, and I've loaded it with a little blue and black just so that you could see what I'm doing here. Now, depending upon which direction the wave is going, the current determines which direction you do your first line. But I'm just going to make in a little shape here. I'm just sketching it in. I'm touching with the full width of my brush to make a line, and then I'm going to draw from there a diagonal straight line. Then if I extend this line out, that's the top of the wave, this would be the eye. Then if I go to the right of this first line that I put in, draw in a little smile, that's the break where the wave washes over to the side, or sucks out the water, or sucks up the water and goes up and over. That's called a break. So these are these strokes where you're just stroking from that edge downward. And I'm just filling this in with some paint. Let me get a little bit of linseed oil so that you can see it better. There we go. So you're repeating the same angle that you did here. This is the most important one. And I just stroke in the same direction. And that's the break. Now the bottom is just another smile. That's where the splash is going to be placed. I'm going to add a little bit of white to my brush to make it a little bit lighter. Usually the eye of the wave is the brightest section. It's wider here towards this diagonal straight line, and then it gets narrower and light as you go to the side. And if I go over top of these strokes with a little bit of paint, it creates that spray or break of the large wave. I can go over it with a little bit more paint. Oil-based paints are really wonderful to use. Very forgiving and very easy to change and add anything that you want to. Now the bottom here, I go back into the dark color. That's blue and black. And I'm just going back and forth like this to make it a little bit darker in color. This right here, this line is called the base line. That's where the water gets sucked up into the wave. So I'm making that darker. And the more I go over this, the more I can just blend it by going back and forth, repeating the same angle with my stroke as I go. So this being the swell line or top of the wave, this is the break. I'll be doing the splash next, going into a little bit more white. There's so many different ways of doing a splash, but the easiest one is to just tap or touch, going from the bottom up into the break. Just to make an uneven shape. And now, of course, I'm going to cover up the whole right side of that break. As long as this is uneven right here and covers up some of your break, you're doing fine. Get a little bit more light. And then you'll continue going up on top of the diagonal line, leaving some of the dark, creating more of the spray or splash that you see on the top. Now you can wait until this completely dries when you're creating it at home, and go over top of it with more paint to add more highlights. Sometimes with the wet paint you're fighting to make it a difference, more contrast. I'm using very thick paint, so So I'm using a light pressure to apply the different shades. So here's your swell line, break, splash, baseline, and of course this needs to be darker than the eye of the wave. And you start by underpainting the break with a darker shade of color and then go over top of it with highlights, creating that misty spray.